What is up, diehards? Wes Monell in the building for AWOL Sports with Paul Durfee, Dill Monell, Leo Holmes. We're hanging out talking NBA. We got the playoffs. We got some great players to talk about. Let's get straight to it. A couple of you guys had your favorite teams in the playoffs. I guess I did too, but they didn't make it as far as yours. Shout out to the Bulls. But yeah, Leo, your team, the Phoenix Suns. Y'all had an awesome run last year. We'll talk about them more in a few. Paul, you guys have been a playoff mainstay, probably a favorite this year, and came up short a little bit. Let's start with your a little bit. I know, man. I get it. But yeah, let's dive into that series real quick. A little recap. Any thoughts you guys may have on Miami advancing past Philly? Little Joel Embiid and little injury there. Paul, as a Sixers fan your entire life, I know you had high expectations for this series. What's on your mind looking back at it, getting like a week to digest?
Yeah, it was a lot of things. I mean, I feel like they were pretty evenly matched going in, but I feel like, you don't want to use excuses, but Embiid obviously wasn't at full strength. Just watching him, with his torn thumb and his broken face, trying to like will his team to victory every night, even though he couldn't hit shots. His stamina was off. It was just not good. But you would hope he could have risen to the occasion and push through it. But obviously, he couldn't do enough, especially when James Harden just kind of quit on the team in the last game and just was like letting people offensive rebound, just blow by them on defense. So I think just the little things. I just feel like the discipline of the team is not great. Even though they've been in the playoffs the last few years, it just seems like they can't do little things well. Like they just gave up so many offensive rebounds this series. I think they lost the turnover battle every single game. And when you're trying to win a series and you're losing the turnovers, you're losing offensive rebounds, and the other teams getting 10, 15 extra possessions every night, you got to pretty much be shooting 50+% to give yourself a chance because of the lack of possessions. So, I just think, just defensively, they should be much better than they are, but they just don't seem to have it. Kind of like, you see the way Boston's playing defense right now, they're just not even close to that level. And then, not having a bench hurt them. And, you got guys playing 40+ minutes and they're, getting tired for whatever reason. So, yeah, just with everything, the way Miami plays, they're disciplined, they're well coached. Yeah, they just made more plays and they were the more disciplined team. So
It sounds like the signs were there. You saw them, and it just kind of aligned for Miami. And it seems like you just saw the writing on the wall before it even unfolded. Unfortunate that it happened. At least the squad made another playoff push. Dill, are you surprised at the James Harden we saw in Philadelphia, especially in this postseason?
I definitely am because I felt like he was looking for a change and kind of a way out of that situation, with the Nets. So I think he saw that combination with him and Joel as a possibility of going very far in the East, right? And I kind of respect that decision because, yeah, on paper, that's a very good tandem, right? You got Embiid who can pretty much do everything on the floor. As soon as you get over half court, he's capable, dropping dimes, setting other people up, getting in the pick and roll game, hitting threes. He can do anything, right? And so James, all he really has to do is be able to distribute the ball and kind of score at a consistent basis and get to the line. For one reason or another, he kind of just looked passive and maybe disinterested to an extent as well, kind of towards the end there. I am curious. I don't know if it's health related or maybe he did truly give up. I don't know. Maybe we'll never really know. But I was just kind of disappointed overall because I love him as an individual player, talented guy for sure. So I'm just really more curious, was it injury related or did he kind of just give up on the team and didn't see a way out because of Joel's injury and too big of a hill to climb at that point?
Damn. Well, Leo, do you think Harden, he's got a player option, to be a free agent. Today, this James Harden, will he get a max contract offer this offseason?
I mean, that's a tough one. For me, I'm going to say no, just because you really don't know what you're getting now. Like Dill spoke, you don't know in reference to the health. Was there actual health issues, or is it just something that he was in his head? I know Paul said that, he kind of gave up there. For me, I mean, the biggest thing with James Harden is you got to look at his entire career, and you really got to ask yourself, do the moments get too big? I know for a lot of times we're creatures of the moment, and we like to say, this is the biggest thing ever here, or this guy never does anything there. But if you look at James Harden's history with OKC when they made it to the finals, his inconsistency just spoke volumes in that series. With Houston, every time, it seemed like they were ready to get over that hump, it seemed like he wasn't ready to do it. He didn't have those performances to match up to it. And now this series peeked his head out again, where you got the last game, elimination game, and you take 2 shots in the second half. You went 21, 22 minutes only taking 1 shot. For a player of his caliber, I mean, you can't ask to say, hey, I'm going to be a max player and I'm taking 1 shot and a half. I can't say yes to that.
Damn, for a moment, I wasn't sure if you were talking about Harden or Ben Simmons. Shoot, man. I mean, that's a problem. You said a shot in 20 whatever minutes. That's rough. Props, obviously, to the winning team. Y'all know I'm huge on Jimmy Butler. I think he's one of the best leaders in the game. I think he's an overachiever as a player. I really do. He, came out of nowhere, came off the bench, didn't get no minutes, worked his way up, found his way a few homes later in Miami. It looks like the perfect spot for him, in my opinion. Paul, I know you got to see a little extra of Jimmy Butler when he was in Philly. What's your perspective on him now?
Yeah, pretty much the same as when, he was on the Sixers. I felt like it was like the one time I feel like in the last, because the Sixers have lost in the second round of the playoffs 4 of the last 5 years now. And I felt like with him, they had their best chance to make like a finals push, just because he just brings a different intensity. And the things I was just mentioning about the Sixers, how they lack that discipline and that like just kind of drive. I feel like he kind of brought out the best in everyone and just showed everyone like kind of like, hey, this is the way I've done this before, type of mentality. And you could just tell like when we needed a bucket, he was the guy, like, because, sometimes in the playoffs, like it's hard when you have a dominant post player and, they can kind of crowd the paint, and it kind of forces other guys to kind of step up and be like, hey, who's going to be the guy who can take the ball off the dribble or just get us a bucket. And I feel like we lacked that this year because Harden, he's just not a scorer anymore. He's a really good point guard and a really good distributor, but that's, he just doesn't have that scoring knack anymore. So with Jimmy, yeah, he had that. He had everything. He could pass, he could shoot, he get a bucket whenever, we needed him to get a bucket. And then unfortunately, due to his age, probably, I'm guessing that, the Sixers, because at that time, the playoffs, that Ben Simmons he was on the ball for most of the season. And then all of a sudden Jimmy comes and they start playing really well in the playoffs because Jimmy was on the ball and Ben was just kind of in a dunker spot, just kind of like chilling, not really doing much. And I think they realized at the end of the season that, hey, we got Ben Simmons, who was an all-star at the time, and he's still young, and we had to decide between him and Jimmy Butler to give our max extension to. And, unfortunately, they went with Simmons, and now look where the franchise has gone. So, it's tough to see, but it's good to see Butler and Embiid still have that mutual respect between each other. So.
I gotta ask, because Jimmy himself said Tobias over me.
Yeah.
So he was willing to take at least all of Tobias's money plus a little bit more. So they possibly could have had Jimmy, Ben, and Embiid. Do you agree with that decision of Tobias Harris still being there, seeing what you've seen now, and Jimmy since he's left?
I didn't think that statement was completely accurate, at least from my recollection. It was it was Jimmy who wanted to come back, but they had to re-sign Ben at the time too and give him like the max contract after his rookie year contract expired. And they're both kind of best on the ball as ball handlers. So I think they had to choose between one of those two. And once they chose Simmons, they kind of were like, okay, let's get something for Butler, because this is kind of like, we're kind of basically giving the reins to Simmons in a sense. And then once they lost Butler, because they traded for Tobias, they didn't want to lose him too. So they kind of just were like, let's just fork over the money because we're better with him, even though we could have used the money elsewhere, kind of thing. So I think that's kind of what their mindset was at the time. Obviously, it didn't work out. Tobias is a really nice, third or fourth option, but, obviously he'll struggles when he has to be called on to do more things. But, that's how I saw it, at least.
Okay, I got you. I just had to ask because that statement with Jimmy making it definitely stood out to me. And I mean, Jimmy on the ball, you're right, vicious. So I had to ask.
Absolutely. And I get it. I think we all get it. Youth prevails when you're making long-term decisions as a team. It probably wasn't an easy decision. I actually think it would be a tougher decision to make behind closed doors, but they did what they had to do at the time. No one knew Ben would turn out to be, no one saw this coming. If you did, you need to place more bets this offseason or something.